Days continued to pass, but Mr. Kim and Taehyung seemed unable to accept the reality that had struck their family. Taehyung had not returned to the Kim family residence. He was still reluctant to face the father he now viewed with utter rage. Meanwhile, Mr. Kim constantly locked himself in his room, mourning his fate and endlessly weeping over his past stupidity. The atmosphere of the Kim family mansion had truly turned into a somber gloom. That afternoon, Yoongi and Seokjin approached their father's room. They knocked on the door repeatedly while calling out to the middle-aged man, having received word from the servants that Mr. Kim had not emerged from his room. Yoongi. Dad. There was no answer at all from inside. Seokjin. Since when has he not left the room? He asked the servant in an anxious tone. Servant. I haven't seen the master since last night, and the others say he hasn't come out at all since then. She said with a worried face. Yoongi. And why didn't any of you try to check on his condition? He barked in anger. Yesterday, Yoongi and Seokjin had been forced to leave to handle a conflict between rival mafia groups, so they were completely focused on resolving the issue and were unaware of their father's condition. Seokjin. Get the spare key. The servant nodded quickly and hurried to fetch the spare key to Mr. Kim's room. Not long after, she returned with the key. Seokjin immediately opened the door. They did not find Mr. Kim on the bed, so they eventually searched the bathroom. To their absolute shock, they found Mr. Kim in a bathtub filled with water that had turned almost entirely red due to the slashes on his wrists. Yoongi and Seokjin. Dad. They shrieked in shock. Seokjin. Dad. Lifting Mr. Kim's body from the bathtub. Dad, wake up Dad. Panicking while shaking Mr. Kim's body. Yoongi. Hung, we're going to the hospital now. He shouted. Seokjin nodded and immediately carried Mr. Kim to the car. Upon arriving at the hospital, Mr. Kim was handled immediately. However, the obstacle was that he had lost too much blood, and his blood type stock in the hospital's blood bank was running low. They needed a donor immediately. Yoongi immediately contacted Taehyung, but there was no response. He then sent a short message saying that Mr. Kim was dying and needed blood. About 15 minutes later, Yoongi and Seokjin saw Taehyung arrive with a panicked expression. Without wasting any time, Taehyung went straight to the transfusion room. Taehyung. I am the son of the patient, Kim Taejong. Take my blood quickly, doctor. He said with full concern. Doctor, we will check your blood first. Even though you are his son, we cannot simply donate blood without matching procedures. Taehyung only nodded in resignation. The doctor took a sample of Taehyung's blood to ensure it was safe to donate. A few minutes later, the doctor returned to Taehyung with a look that appeared very serious. He stared at the test results in his hand for quite a while before finally letting out a soft sigh. Doctor, I'm sorry, we have performed the cross-match test. By type, it already appears incompatible, but the bigger issue is the cross-match result. Mr. Kim Taejong's body shows a rejection reaction to your blood. Taehyung immediately frowned in confusion. Rejection? What do you mean, doctor? I'm his son, it should be compatible, shouldn't it? The doctor went silent for a moment, as if weighing his words carefully. Doctor, under normal conditions, family members are often good donors. However, in certain conditions, a patient can have specific antibodies that cause blood from another person, even from their own family, to be rejected. Taehyung. So, it's absolutely not possible? He asked, growing more panicked. Doctor, for now, it is not safe. The atmosphere became silent for a few seconds. The doctor looked at the results in his hand again, this time with a more serious expression. Doctor, may I ask you something? Taehyung nodded hesitantly. Doctor, are you Mr. Kim Taejong's biological son? The question made Taehyung freeze in place. What do you mean? Doctor, taking a deep breath. Mr. Kim's blood type is O, while yours is AB. Genetically, this combination is impossible. Even if your mother had blood type AB, the result would still not produce a child with blood type AB if the father has blood type O. In a combination of O and AB, the child can only have blood type A or B, not AB, and also not O. The room suddenly felt cramped for Taehyung. Doctor, I do not mean to jump to any conclusions. However, medically speaking, this data is inconsistent. To be certain, further testing such as a DNA test is required. Taehyung shook his head weakly. His face turned deathly pale hearing the doctor's explanation, which seemed to tear down the remains of his world. Doctor, I'm sorry, but we will try to find other blood stocks for Mr. Kim. Taehyung rose from his seat. He stepped out of the room with a weak frame and a face that grew increasingly pale, as if the weight of the entire world had just been dropped onto his shoulders. Yoongi and Seokjin, who had been waiting in front of the blood transfusion room, instantly approached him with faces full of questions. Yoongi, how was it? Did you donate your blood? Taehyung stared at his two adoptive brothers with a vacant, almost lifeless gaze. Contact YN. She has to donate blood for Dad. My blood cannot be donated. Seokjin, frowning in confusion. Cannot. Why not? Taehyung, I don't have enough strength to explain this right now. Please, contact YN immediately. Seokjin nodded quickly, seeing Taehyung's condition on the brink of collapse. He immediately reached for his phone to call YN, while Yoongi approached Taehyung. Yoongi. Taehyung ah. Taehyung remained silent, his head bowed low. Yoongi gently rubbed Taehyung's back, trying to give him space to calm down until his younger brother was ready to speak. About 15 minutes later, YN arrived, gasping for breath. Her steps faltered for a moment when she saw Taehyung's disheveled state, but she tried to compose herself. Seokjin, go quickly to the transfusion room. Dad still needs more donors. YN only nodded and hurried to follow the medical staff leading her inside. She didn't find it strange to see Taehyung there without donating. As far as YN knew, blood donor compatibility was complicated even within biological family relationships. Taehyung caught a glimpse of YN as she walked away, his fingers gripping each other so tightly that his knuckles turned white. Rage, sadness, and confusion swirled into a storm in his chest. He couldn't even bear to lift his face anymore, the pain felt redoubled every time he saw the woman he loved. Fate seemed to be playing a cruel game with him. They hadn't even had the chance to taste the happiness of their mutual love, yet a bitter reality was already forcing them apart. This distancing and increasingly estranged relationship was truly torturing his soul. After some time, YN emerged from the transfusion room and approached them. Yoongi, how was it? YN, it's done, the blood has been taken to the operating room. She said softly, making Seokjin and Yoongi automatically glance at Taehyung. YN felt an overwhelming awkwardness. Her heart grew more pained seeing this chaotic situation. In fact, she had planned to leave Daegu tomorrow, but this tragic news forced her to stay. Regardless, she couldn't turn a blind eye. Mr. Kim was the man who had treated her so well all this time. YN. Oppa, I have to leave for a moment. Please take good care of Dad, she said to Seokjin and Yoongi. Seokjin, where are you going? Dad is in critical condition. YN. There are a few matters I need to settle. I'll be back later. Yoongi and Seokjin could only let out a long sigh, unable to stop her departure. Seokjin, don't do anything strenuous yet, especially don't overexert yourself. Remember, you just donated blood. YN, don't worry, I'll be fine. YN moved to leave, but her steps paused for a second to look back at Taehyung, who was still looking down in silence. YN immediately averted her gaze, trying hard to suppress the tears that nearly fell before she truly walked away from the hospital corridor. Yoongi put his arm around Taehyung's shoulder again, trying to be supportive. Seokjin and Yoongi understood perfectly how devastated they all were due to the painful facts newly revealed, especially for Taehyung and YN, who clearly loved each other but were hindered by their status as siblings. Taehyung, I don't know how many more facts are still hidden, he said flatly with a vacant stare. Seokjin, what do you mean? Taehyung lifted his face, looking at Seokjin and Yoongi alternately with a gaze that was both sharp and fragile. I think Dad is hiding a lot of things from me. Especially, about my relationship with him. That sentence successfully made Seokjin and Yoongi frown in wonder. Taehyung, all this time, I never knew that Dad was blood type O. There was never a situation that required me to know, and I didn't pay much attention to his medical files. We also haven't been in a dire condition that required a blood donation. Seokjin, Taehyung, what exactly are you trying to say? Taehyung, Dad and I have different blood types. Dad is type O, while I am AB. The doctor said this makes no sense medically. Even if mother was blood type AB, it's impossible for me to be born with blood type AB. A cross between blood types O and AB will only produce children with blood type A or B, not AB, and not O. Seokjin and Yoongi were transfixed, their faces paling as they heard their brother's very technical yet terrifying explanation. Taehyung, it seems Dad is hiding something massive from me. Seokjin rubbed his face roughly, feeling frustrated with the mounting secrets. Taehyung, if that's the case, a DNA test shish. Taehyung, I won't do a DNA test. I'll ask Dad directly when he wakes up, he cut in with a cold and flat tone, ending the debate between them. 2 days later, YN returned to the hospital after receiving word that her father had regained consciousness. She intentionally arrived 5 hours after the announcement to avoid any awkwardness. She didn't want to be trapped in a situation where she had to wait in front of the room with Taehyung. Thus, only after ensuring that Mr. Kim was fit to speak did YN set foot there. Meanwhile, inside the room, Taehyung stood facing Mr. Kim. The atmosphere between them was incredibly tense. Mr. Kim. Taehyung. Taehyung went silent for a moment, struggling hard to control the surge of emotion in his chest that felt ready to explode. Taehyung. Dad, you shouldn't have acted so foolishly. Did you think that by ending your life, you would make life better for me and YN? Did you think that could heal the wounds in our hearts? Mr. Kim. I'm sorry, he murmured faintly in a raspy voice. Taehyung, closing his eyes for a moment. Dad, maybe this isn't the right time, but I want to hear it right now. Is my relationship with you the same as your relationship with my 2 adoptive brothers? Mr. Kim instantly frowned in confusion. What do you mean? Taehyung, am I just like Yoongi and Seokjin Hung, whose status is only as your adopted sons? Deg. Mr. Kim froze. The look of shock captured clearly on the middle-aged man's face was answer enough for Taehyung. Mr. Kim, what are you saying? You are my son. Taehyung, please don't hide anything, he said in a flat, piercing tone. Taehyung, 2 days ago, I intended to donate my blood, but your body rejected it because of the antibodies created. The doctor said he doubted I was your biological son. My blood type is AB and yours is O. Medically, that is impossible, Dad. Mr. Kim's face grew increasingly pale, his lips trembling. Taehyung, if YN hadn't arrived in time to donate her blood, we don't know what would have happened to you. I arrived first, but I could do nothing because of this reality. Mr. Kim. Taehyung. Taehyung, tell me honestly, Dad. Am I not your biological son? Mr. Kim shook his head as tears began to stream heavily down his cheeks. Mr. Kim, you are my son. Taehyung, Dad, if you aren't honest, this pain will only grow larger. Mr. Kim looked down, his shoulders shaking violently. He looked back at Taehyung with a deeply mournful gaze. Mr. Kim. Taehyung, forgive me. I didn't mean to hide it. You are the child of the woman I loved very much, none other than your mother. Taehyung, what do you mean, Dad? Mr. Kim, from the moment your mother legally became my wife, I have been your father. Taehyung stepped back, his body shaking. So, you married mother while she was pregnant with me. She was pregnant with another man's child, but you were the one who married her. Mr. Kim, that man was no stranger, he was my best friend. Your mother had been married before, and your father died during a mission. He was also a mafioso, Taehyung FF. The point is, you are my son, even if not of my blood. I love you dearly. Taehyung stared at the man with a vacant gaze. His mind was in total chaos, with anger and sadness overlapping. Taehyung, you didn't kill my biological father just to get my mother, did you? Mr. Kim, what kind of thought is that? I had indeed loved her for a long time, but I wasn't so heartless as to snatch away her happiness. Taehyung shook his head. He continued to step backward until he finally exited the room, feeling utterly destroyed. Mr. Kim, Taehyung AAA. Taehyung. He called out while clutching his chest, which felt painful once again. Outside the room, YN stood frozen. She had just arrived and was held back by Seokjin and Yoongi because Taehyung was inside their father's room. Inadvertently, she had overheard the entire painful conversation. The news that Taehyung was not her father's biological son hit her like a bolt of lightning. Seokjin. Taehyung FF. Seokjin tried to hold Taehyung back, but his hand was brushed away. YN, I'll talk to him, she said faintly, then immediately chased after Taehyung's steps. YN. Taehyung FF. Kim Taehyung. She shouted while continuing to run. Grab. YN managed to catch that muscular arm, pulling it so that Taehyung was forced to turn around. YN. Taehyung FF. She said softly with teary eyes. Taehyung, let go, he said coldly. YN, I know you need time alone, but think of Dad's health. He needs you by his side. Taehyung drew closer, staring at YN with a gaze that was so flat and foreign. Taehyung, you are his biological child. I am only a stepson. He needs you more than he needs me, he said while flinging In's hand away. YN, do you think you're the only one hurting here? She snapped, making Taehyung's steps halt. Dad must be just as hurt. Can't you just stay by his side for now? Taehyung, why do you care so much now? Weren't you the one who wanted to cut ties and leave this city? Is it because I'm not his biological son that you're reconsidering? Do you think we can be together just because I'm not Kim Taehyung's flesh and blood? Listen, Kim YN, I killed your mother, I hate your mother, and I'm starting to hate you too, to the point that I'm reluctant to even see your face. In's tears fell instantly. Her heart shattered into pieces hearing that cruel confession. Taehyung brushed In's hand away once more and walked away without looking back. YN, you find it so easy to hate me. While if I could, I would want that hatred to exist too. YN collapsed. YN, Taehyung FF. Is it only me who loves you too much that it's so difficult for hatred to even appear? Since that day, Taehyung seemed to have vanished into thin air. He never showed his face at the Kim family residence again, and not a single word was heard from him. Seokjin and Yoongi had deployed all their men to scour every corner of the city to find him. Mr. Kim never stopped pleading with his two adopted sons to bring Taehyung home, but after months of searching, the results remained nil. Taehyung had completely severed ties with the world that raised him. Mr. Kim's health declined sharply following the departure of his youngest son. The burden of guilt and longing became a poison that slowly eroded his physical strength. On the other hand, YN also needed time to herself. She once felt a powerful urge to cut all ties with Mr. Kim and flee as far as possible. However, seeing her father's deteriorating health, YN eventually chose to open her heart. She found the strength to stay and sought to forgive, even though she knew the wounds in her soul might never fully heal. YN decided to remain by her father's side. Mr. Kim was deeply grateful that, at the very least, YN had not abandoned him as Taehyung had. Even so, the shadows of the past continued to haunt them. An immense sense of guilt still weighed on Mr. Kim's heart, to the point where he sometimes found it difficult to even look at his daughter. To this day, he had not found a way to atone for his mistakes toward YN, and especially toward Grandma Ryu. YN, sensing his restlessness, always tried to comfort her father. She repeatedly told him not to dwell on it anymore, because, after all, Mr. Kim had truly been unaware of the past events that had hurt them all. Now, YN and her father tried to hold on to one another, attempting to repair their fractured bond and heal their wounds together. Amidst the storm that had not yet fully subsided, Yoongi and Seokjin remained faithfully by their side, serving as pillars of strength for a family struggling to stay whole. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months. Without realizing it, a full year had passed without Taehyung's presence. No one knew how many tears had been shed, how many thousands of apologies had been spoken, or how much effort had been poured into simply mending the open wounds. It certainly was not easy, but YN and her father slowly managed to move forward. Even after 2 years, their relationship began to improve, though the scars still occasionally stung if accidentally touched. As time went on, YN felt herself maturing into a much stronger individual. She grew wiser in controlling her emotions and found the capacity within her heart to offer forgiveness, even though she knew the mistakes of the past were far from trivial. YN gathered many life lessons from every painful event that had struck her life. Making peace with her reality was one of the most precious lessons she finally embraced. She realized that forgetting is not as easy as a flick of the wrist, but once the heart has truly come to terms with the past, everything begins to feel more tranquil. Now, YN decided to rebuild her life for the better, determined to step out completely from the dark shadows of her history. Mr. Kim, sweetheart, where are you going? He asked YN, who appeared busy packing her things into a bag. YN, turning around, then approaching her father. Dad, I'm sorry if this seems sudden, but I have to leave for Jeju right now. I received word that Grandma Ryu is sick. Mr. Kim, is that so? He said, his voice starting to sound worried. YN, nodding. She refuses to be taken to the hospital, but fortunately, Yeon Eoni is there, so you don't need to worry excessively. You'll be alright if I leave, right? Mr. Kim, it's fine, sweetheart. Your 2 brothers are here to look after me, don't worry. I'm sorry I can't do much, and I'm sorry I haven't been able to apologize to Grandma Ryu in person yet. Mr. Kim lowered his head, his expression reflecting a deep sense of unease. YN, it's okay, Dad. If you aren't ready or able yet, I understand. She said softly while squeezing her father's hand, trying to give him strength. Mr. Kim, looking at YN with a mournful gaze. I'm just afraid. I'm afraid Grandma Ryu won't be able to forgive me and will try to take you away from me. YN, going silent for a moment and taking a long breath. Dad, I've decided to keep everything a secret from Grandma Ryu. I won't tell her that I am her biological granddaughter. Mr. Kim, YN ah. He murmured, the guilt resurfacing. YN, this is for the good of everyone, Dad. I don't want anything bad to happen to Grandma Ryu's health if she finds out everything now. So, it's best she doesn't know for the time being. But you still have to meet Grandma Ryu later to apologize personally. Besides, I don't want our relationship to get even more complicated if she knows I'm your daughter. She might even avoid me if she finds out on her own. Mr. Kim nodded firmly. I will definitely meet her and apologize. YN nodded with a sincere smile, then hugged Mr. Kim briefly to calm the middle-aged man's heart. I'll be going now, Dad. Mr. Kim, be careful on the road. I'll send some cakes to Grandma Ryu's and Grandma Lee's house later. YN simply nodded with a sweet smile, then bid her farewell to begin her journey to Jeju. Three hours later, Mr. Kim was reading some articles in the living room, but suddenly his attention was diverted as his 2 adopted sons approached him with hurried steps and faces pale with panic. Mr. Kim, what's wrong with you two? He asked in wonder, sensing a bad omen. Seokjin, YN went to Jeju, didn't she, Dad? Mr. Kim, Nodding. Yes, YN left for Jeju this morning around 8. Seokjin, YN should have arrived in Jeju around 10, but I just heard from Yewon that she hasn't arrived there yet. Mr. Kim instantly frowned, reflexively glancing at the wall clock which showed it was nearly midday. How could she not be there yet? It's already 11 o'clock, he said, his voice starting to tremble with worry. Mr. Kim quickly tried to call In's phone, but no matter how many times he tried, the number was completely inactive. Yoongi, we've already ordered several members to track In's whereabouts immediately. Mr. Kim was hit by a wave of excessive anxiety. His chest felt tight, and Seokjin and Yoongi knew all too well that this could cause their father's health to drop drastically again. Seokjin, Dad, calm down. YN will surely be fine. We will soon find out where she is. Yoongi, that's right, Dad, don't worry excessively. You might fall ill if you can't control your anxiety, and YN would certainly be sad if she knew you were sick again. Mr. Kim nodded weakly while trying to regulate his breathing, which was becoming labored. You two, find YN, quickly. Yoongi and Seokjin only nodded firmly in response before both rushed off to lead the search for their sister. On the other hand, YN blinked her eyes slowly, trying to shake off the pounding headache throbbing in her skull. Her memories spun back to the moment she had just set foot in Jeju. On the way to Grandma Ryu's house, several cars had suddenly blocked her path, leading to a fierce fight with the men inside. YN quickly realized they were mobsters, though she didn't know which group they belonged to. Because they outnumbered her significantly, YN could no longer hold them off, especially since she hadn't been involved in physical combat for quite some time. As her body grew exhausted, the mobsters took the opportunity to drug her until her consciousness faded completely. Now, YN scanned every corner of the dilapidated room. Damn it, which mafia group is trying to pick a fight with me? I don't recall having enemies in Jeju, she thought in wonder as she looked around. Or are they targeting the Kim family and using me as bait? The sound of approaching footsteps broke her train of thought. The door swung open, revealing a tall figure with a handsome face that YN knew all too well. Their gazes collided, and YN flashed an annoyed smile filled with hatred. YN. J, she said in a cold, flat tone. Jaden, the son of the leader of the Lewis Mafia based in Russia. A man who had been insanely obsessed with YN since their meeting at the Russian border several years ago. Jay, hi, sweetheart. Long time no see, he said with a wide grin. YN, disgusting bastard. YN cursed without hesitation. Jay, chuckling, we haven't seen each other in years, but you're still the same, sweetheart. Prickly, but I like it. YN, stop saying those disgusting words and release me immediately. Jay, hey, I came all the way from Russia just to see you, and you're telling me to let you go. It's not that easy. I came to take you with me. Let's live together, I guarantee you'll be happy. YN, smirking cynically. Not even in your worst nightmare would I be willing. Jaden laughed in amusement, his steps drawing closer until his face was only a few centimeters from In's. Ah, this beautiful face always drives me crazy. I tried to forget you and look for other women, but no one could captivate me the way you do. After all these years, I decided to chase you. But I don't like wasting time. I know it won't be easy to make you melt, so I'll take a shortcut. Jay smirked wickedly. We'll have a little fun before I take you away, he said, then insolently kissed In's cheek. YN, you bastard. YN shrieked in rage as she struggled, but the ropes binding her hands and feet made her efforts futile. As Jay was about to kiss In's lips, a powerful blow landed on him. Jay was sent sprawling onto the floor. YN looked up, and her heart seemed to skip a beat when she saw the figure standing tall in front of her. The man who had vanished for 2 years without a word was now standing there with an incredibly intimidating aura. YN, Kim Taehyung, she murmured in shock. Taehyung, you're finished, he said growling, staring at Jay with a lethal gaze. Jay, motherfucker, Jay cursed as he stood up and lunged at Taehyung. An inevitable brawl broke out. During the exchange of blows, Jay began to realize that Taehyung was no match for him. Taehyung's martial arts skills were far superior. Jae also realized that none of his subordinates were coming to help. It meant Taehyung had eliminated all of them so silently that Jae hadn't even noticed. Feeling backed into a corner, Jae quickly shifted his tactics. He moved nimbly toward YN, locking his arm around her neck from behind and pressing the muzzle of a pistol right against her head. Jae, drop your weapon, he shouted as Taehyung also pointed a gun at him. Drop it, or I'll kill her. Taehyung stared intently at YN, giving her a subtle signal through his eyes. YN caught the signal and blinked once. Unexpectedly, YN bit Jae's arm as hard as she could until the man cried out in pain and reflexively loosened his grip. Bang! Bang! Without hesitation, Taehyung fired several shots into Jae's body until the man collapsed. Taehyung, you picked the wrong opponent. You shouldn't have messed with what belongs to someone else. He murmured coldly, then fired one last shot to ensure Jae would never wake up again. YN closed her eyes. She knew the death of the Lewis Mafia heir would trigger a massive war, but she also knew her family was capable of handling it. YN flinched as she felt someone's hands gently untying the ropes on her feet and hands. Taehyung, they tied you too tight, you're bruised, he said, a deep note of concern hidden behind his voice. YN remained silent, her eyes fixed on the face she had secretly longed for over the past 2 years. Taehyung's gaze, which had softened for a moment, hardened again when he saw the mark of Jae's kiss on In's cheek. Reflexively, Taehyung's fingers rubbed the cheek intensely, as if he wanted to erase any trace of the other man. Taehyung, we have to leave. I'll take you to a safe place before dealing with the rest of Jae's men. Without waiting for an answer, Taehyung immediately carried YN toward his car parked not far from the abandoned building. YN remained speechless, allowing herself to be held in Taehyung's embrace. She didn't ask where he had been for 2 years or how he had found her. For now, the silence between them spoke far louder than words. Taehyung brought YN to his quiet residence. However, YN was completely unaware of where she was being taken. Her sheer exhaustion, combined with the lingering effects of the sedative, caused her to sleep throughout the journey. When her eyes finally fluttered open, she was lying in a silent, unfamiliar room. YN massaged her temples repeatedly, trying to soothe the throbbing ache in her head. She scanned the room before staring blankly out of the glass wall, which revealed the deep darkness of the night. With unsteady steps, YN climbed out of bed and walked toward the door. She intended to find Taehyung, but her path was instantly blocked as the door swung open. In's attention was immediately drawn to the scene in the living room. Taehyung appeared to be sharing a warm, playful moment with a small child. In another corner, specifically the kitchen, a woman seemed busy at the dining table, occasionally casting a sincere smile toward Taehyung and the boy. Small child. Appa, Ioma, the child said cheerfully while pointing at his toys. Taehyung. Yes, it's all yours, Taehyung replied while gently stroking the boy's hair. YN froze. It felt as if a heavy sledgehammer had struck her chest. Appa, Ioma, she murmured faintly, barely audible. The woman in the kitchen suddenly turned around and accidentally noticed In's presence. Oh, are you awake, miss? She asked kindly. Taehyung snapped his head toward her. He reflexively stood up and approached YN with a relieved expression. Taehyung, eat something first, then take your vitamins so your body feels better. YN didn't answer. She remained silent, casting a bitter glance toward the woman in the kitchen, then looked at the small child who was still busy in his own world. Finally, she focused her gaze on Taehyung. Is this the reason you never came back? You've started a new life and have a family. YN thought, her heart constricting. Her eyes began to well up, imagining that her 2-year wait had ended in vain. Taehyung, seeing the pool of tears in In's eyes, was instantly overcome with worry. Taehyung, what's wrong? Is something hurting? He asked softly while reaching out to touch In's cheek, but she quickly brushed his hand away. Without a single word, YN turned her body, walked quickly toward the main door, and exited the house. Taehyung, where are you going? Taehyung asked while chasing her and grabbing In's arm. YN tried to struggle, continuing to walk without heeding his call. Taehyung, Kim YN. Taehyung barked, pulling In's arm until her body turned to face him. Taehyung stood stunned. The beautiful face he had missed so dearly was now drenched in overflowing tears. Taehyung, what is it? He asked hoarsely, his fingers moving to wipe away the tears. But again, he was pushed away harshly. YN, wherever I go or whatever happens to me, it's no longer your business. She said sharply, turning to leave, but Taehyung held her firmly again. Taehyung, the main road is very far from here. It's midnight, and there's no public transportation running. You can't just leave like this. YN, so what? Are you worried? Instead of minding my business, you'd better go take care of that little family of yours. Taehyung frowned in confusion. Little family, he murmured, not understanding. He pulled In's arm again as she tried to distance herself once more. Don't be stubborn, Kim YN. YN turned back, flashing a sharp gaze full of pain. So you want me to stay here and witness your happiness? To watch you play the role of the perfect father and husband while I mourn my own stupidity? She shrieked hysterically. YN, 2 years, for 2 years I tried to plant hatred for you. But instead of hating you, I was a fool because I kept hoping you'd return. I hoped our relationship could mend, hoped this love was still worth fighting for. But I forgot, to you, I'm just the child of your mother's killer. I should have thought the same. If you don't want me because my mother killed yours, then it's also not right for me to want the man who killed my own mother. I should have forgotten you and moved on with my life. Taehyung remained silent, allowing YN to pour out all the anger and agony that had been bottled up for the last 2 years. YN, you're living very well, building a family, even having a handsome son. I'm glad you can be happy, unlike me who. Kiss. In's sentence was cut off instantly. Her eyes widened in shock as Taehyung suddenly pulled her body close and silenced her lips with a deep kiss. Taehyung's hands encircled her waist tightly, locking her movements. YN tried to rebel for a moment, pushing against his broad chest, but Taehyung's strength was far greater. He pressed the back of In's neck firmer, deepening a kiss that was saturated with longing. In's resistance slowly weakened. She finally surrendered, drowning in a kiss that seemed to transmit all of Taehyung's long-suppressed feelings. Taehyung slowly broke the kiss, his breath coming in ragged gasps. He pressed his forehead against In's, his fingers gently stroking her nape. He looked deeply into In's eyes. He now understood the source of the woman's anger. Taehyung, we will talk about our issues later. But it seems I have to clear something up right now so you don't misunderstand any further. YN stared at Taehyung with a bewildered look behind her swollen eyes. Taehyung, I don't know how you could think that far. But there's one thing you need to know, there will never be a single woman who can replace your position in my heart. And there is not one woman who can have me, other than you.